In late July of 2017, a Hutchinson, Kansas woman named Amanda Nicole Gresham was accused of setting up a man to be robbed at his home. The victim, Tyler Ash, told police that Gresham had messaged him on Facebook and asked to come over to his residence. He answered the door at around 2:30 a.m. and was met by Gresham, along with two men who followed her into the apartment. One of the suspects demanded money at gunpoint and started punching and pistol whipping Ash when he said he didn't have any. The other male suspect joined in the attack, which continued until Ash managed to escape into a bathroom. After the beating, Gresham and her accomplices searched the apartment for valuables and stole a TV. Gresham was arrested the following day after an officer who knew her from previous encounters spotted her riding in a vehicle. She was already wanted for failing to appear in court for a parole violation, and she caught additional charges for the burglary incident. During her conversations with law enforcement, Gresham claimed that she had run into her two alleged co-conspirators while on her way to Ash's house and that they had demanded to go with her. She also admitted to owning the gun that was used in the home invasion, which was found in her purse. Gresham has also reportedly been implicated in at least one other robbery, which was carried out in a similar fashion. Records show that she's serving a 10-year prison sentence for aggravated burglary, aggravated battery, aggravated robbery, and drug possession, with an earliest possible release date of April 2027. Number 19. Derrick Alling. In late September of 2025, Christian County deputies performed a welfare check at the Ozark, Missouri home of 60-year-old dental hygienist Carolyn Alicia Alling, whose husband had grown concerned after being unable to reach her for several hours. They were met at the door by Carolyn's 39-year-old son, Derrick Alling, who claimed that his mother was in a guest house nearby. When the deputies asked Derrick if Carolyn was alive, he said he didn't think so. Law enforcement searched the property and found Carolyn's body. Based on her injuries, it was evident that she had been repeatedly bludgeoned in the head and face with a gardening or scraping tool. The killer had beaten her with such force that she had suffered several skull fractures. Carolyn's husband, Roger, Derrick's stepson, told investigators that his son had been threatening the victim and demanding his inheritance in the weeks leading up to Carolyn's death. Derrick was booked into the Christian County Jail, where he remains in custody on suspicion of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. He pleaded not guilty to the charges and is due back in court in mid-October. Number 18. Ivan Van Beverhoudt. While working as an on-duty U.S. Customs and Border Patrol officer in January of 2020, 45-year-old Ivan Van Beverhoudt was caught trying to smuggle 16 bricks of cocaine onto the U.S. mainland at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. A drug-sniffing canine detected the drugs after Van Beverhoudt deboarded a plane that had just arrived from the U.S. Virgin Islands. According to federal authorities, he had traveled in an official capacity to avoid going through security at the airport in St. Thomas. The case dragged on for more than 5 years before finally going to trial in February of 2025. A jury found Van Beverhoudt guilty of multiple federal charges, including conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States, importation of cocaine into the United States, conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute cocaine, and possession with intent to distribute cocaine. He was sentenced in late July to 20 years in prison. Number 17. Chimene Onyeri. Travis County, Texas judge Julie Kokurik was lucky to be alive after a disgruntled defendant tried to kill her outside her Austin home in November of 2015. She was shot multiple times while sitting in her vehicle, leaving her seriously injured from bullet and shrapnel wounds. The shooter, Chimene Hamilton Onyeri, had become convinced that Kokurik was going to bring down a criminal enterprise that he had been running with two other suspects, operating between Austin, Houston, and Louisiana. Onyeri and his co-conspirators, Rasul Kareem Scott and Marcellus Antoine Burgin, obtained money with stolen information from debit card skimming devices and by stealing their victims' identities. At the time of the shooting, Onyeri was facing a probation violation charge stemming from a previous case. He tried to kill Judge Kokurik 2 days prior to his next scheduled court hearing on the matter. Following the attempt on Kokurik's life, Onyeri was charged in federal court with 17 racketeering violations under the RICO Act, including mail fraud, bribery of a public official, identity theft, and attempted murder. He was found guilty in 2018 following a jury trial and was subsequently sentenced to life in prison. Virgin and Scott pleaded guilty to conspiring to violate the RICO Act, resulting in a 25-year sentence for Virgin and a 17.5-year sentence for Scott. There's no parole in the federal criminal justice system, which means that the men will have to serve nearly the entirety of their prison terms behind bars. They'll both serve 5 years of federal probation following their release. Number 16. Eddie Tipton. One of the biggest lottery scams in US history was masterminded by an Iowa man named Eddie Tipton, who rigged jackpots in at least 5 states in his favor to the tune of $24 million. Using computer codes, he increased his odds of winning from 5 million to 1 to 200 to 1, while working as an executive for the Multi-State Lottery Association. Authorities caught on to the scheme after Tipton won a $16.5 million jackpot in Iowa in 2010. The money was never paid out because the winner refused to reveal their identity, leading to the discovery that Tipton had bought the winning ticket. As a lottery employee, Tipton was banned from playing the lotto. After discovering that he had broken this policy, investigators uncovered evidence of the rigging scam. Tipton and his brother, Tommy Boy Tipton, ultimately confessed to rigging lotteries in Iowa, Wisconsin, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Kansas. Although the true extent of their scamming and exactly when it began may never be known, Eddie, Tommy, and a third conspirator, Texas businessman Robert Rhodes, were arrested in 2015 for their roles in the scheme. Rhodes took a plea deal and agreed to testify against the Tiptons in exchange for 6 months of house arrest and agreeing to pay more than $400,000 in restitution. Tommy Tipton pleaded guilty in Texas to conspiracy to commit theft by deception and served just 75 days in jail. Eddie Tipton pleaded guilty to 3 charges in Iowa and Wisconsin, including ongoing criminal conduct, theft by fraud, and computer crime. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison and was paroled in 2022 after serving just 5 years. Number 15. Daylon Pierce. Serial grifter Daylon Pierce conned 13 victims out of nearly $2 million over a roughly 3-year period, starting in 2013 while pretending to be a stockbroker and targeting women on dating websites. Using his charm and good looks, he persuaded his targets to hand over thousands of dollars of their hard-earned money for investment schemes that turned out to be fraudulent. Pierce told his victims that he owned a successful investment company called Credit Investment Group LLC, but in reality the business only functioned as a seemingly legitimate front for his financial crimes. In addition to convincing the women to fork over money, he used their information to obtain fraudulent loans and credit cards. Pierce squandered the ill-gotten funds on an indulgent lifestyle, including upscale hotel stays, luxury cars, and designer goods. Perhaps not surprisingly, his suspicious activities eventually caught the attention of investigators, and in January of 2017, he was indicted in Arizona on multiple criminal charges. He pleaded guilty the following month to 1 count of fraudulent schemes and artifices for the online dating scams, along with a similar charge in another fraud case, and was sentenced to nearly 16 years in prison. Pierce apologized during his sentencing hearing, saying that he took full responsibility for his wrongdoings and that it kills him to know that he jeopardized his victims' ability to provide for their families. He also acknowledged the wrongfulness of his actions during a phone interview with the producers of American Greed, which featured an episode about his crimes. But the bottom line is that the stolen money is gone and the victims are unlikely to get it back, even in the event of a civil judgment in their favor. Number 14. Jared Eng. 65-year-old Paula Chin was reported missing in early 2019 after vanishing from her apartment in Manhattan's Tribeca neighborhood. The following day, police paid a visit to a New Jersey residence where Chin's son was staying and found her decomposing remains in a trash bin. Prosecutors accused 22-year-old Jared Eng of beating his mother and slashing her throat in an attempt to get his hands on the $11 million he believed she had in the bank. Eng's 2 lovers, 21-year-old Caitlin O'Rourke and 18-year-old Jennifer Lopez, were charged with concealment of a corpse for aiding in his attempts to cover up the crime. Eng initially denied killing his mother but ended up pleading guilty to second-degree murder in October of 2022 and was sentenced to 22 years to life in prison. He choked back tears during his sentencing hearing while admitting that Chin deserved a better son than the one she got and describing his actions as evil, terrible, and horrific. Number 13. Keisha Williams. At a time when the telemarketing industry was experiencing a lucrative uptick, a Virginia woman named Keisha Williams jumped at her chance to get a piece of the pie. She obtained around $5 million in funding by claiming to be involved in the development of state-of-the-art software for facilitating remote doctors' visits, a concept which at the time was still in its infancy. Williams promised her investors a 30 to 100% return, claiming that the software was being held in escrow but would be released to her once she paid the necessary taxes and fees. But she only put a small portion of the money toward the software while spending the rest on travel, upscale dining, and designer clothing and accessories. When Williams wasn't on vacation, she was living in high-end hotels in and around Washington, D.C., while using her actual apartment as little more than a walk-in closet for her ever-expanding fashion collection. She also used the money to further her scam, including by paying a lawyer $272,000 for forged documents to make the scheme appear legitimate. The law eventually caught up with Williams, and in 2015 she pleaded guilty to 14 fraud-related crimes in federal court. She was sentenced to 15.5 years in prison, with current records listing a projected release date of June 2031. Number 12. Chris Epps. Christopher Epps began his career in the criminal justice system as a corrections officer and worked his way to the very top, eventually becoming the commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Corrections. He was appointed to the position in 2002 and retained it for 12 years, making him the agency's longest-serving commissioner ever. But his decades of achievements were forgotten to the legacy of corruption he left behind after falling under federal scrutiny in 2014. Epps resigned amid the investigation and was subsequently indicted on federal charges of bribery and kickbacks, with prosecutors claiming that he had likely received millions of dollars from businessmen and others whose interests fell under the MDOC's jurisdiction. The illegal rewards were provided by individuals who were involved in the for-profit private prison industry, including former politician Cecil McCrory, who paid Epps in exchange for awarding contracts to companies that he owned. In early 2015, Epps pleaded guilty to federal charges of filing a false tax return and conspiracy to commit money laundering. He was sentenced to 19 years in prison despite his pleas for leniency and is due to be released in 2033. McCrory was sentenced to 8.5 years behind bars, and numerous other suspects have since been sued and criminally prosecuted for their roles in this scheme. Number 11. Jean Alexzander Alex Scott. 78-year-old Billy Rogers and her son, 61-year-old Gene Rogers, were shot dead in cold blood inside their Richburg, South Carolina mobile home on Father's Day in 2020. No arrests were made until the fall of 2021, when authorities announced charges against 24-year-old Jean Alexzander Alex Scott, who is Gene Rogers' grandson and Billy Rogers' great-grandson. Scott was extradited to the US from Germany, where he was serving in the American military to face 2 counts of murder and 1 count of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. Prosecutors accused him of killing the victims in an attempt to collect his inheritance, initially noting that the defendant was having money issues, while later describing his actions as a crime of greed. In the year leading up to his death, Gene Rogers had given Scott around $80,000, but it apparently wasn't enough, according to the authorities, who said that Scott wanted to get his hands on the victim's life insurance and retirement money. The case finally went to trial in May of 2024 and ended in a guilty verdict, finally bringing some closure to the victim's surviving relatives. Scott was sentenced to 60 years in prison without parole, which means that he'll most likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. Number 10. Zachary Horwitz, or Zach Avery. D-list actor Zachary Joseph Horwitz was desperate to make it in Hollywood, but he struggled to land roles based on his talent alone. After quitting college and moving to Los Angeles in 2013 to pursue his career in show business, he founded a company called 1 in MM Productions, short for 1 in a Million. The company claimed to be involved in the production of dozens of mainstream movies and TV series. Believing that the rights to the content were being sold to big-name platforms like Netflix, investors were initially quick to hand over their hard-earned money in hopes of seeing a return. Horwitz, who went by the stage name Zach Avery, told his clients that their investments were safe, but in reality, he had never sold a single film to Netflix. In the meantime, he used most of the $506 million he had amassed under false pretenses to live like a celebrity, splurging on luxury travel, nightclubs, and a lavish home. But the ruse wouldn't last forever, and in 2019, Horwitz began to default on payments. The money ran out and disgruntled investors refused to risk any more losses, landing him at the center of a federal investigation. In 2021, Horwitz was charged with wire fraud and other crimes for operating a Ponzi scheme. He pleaded guilty to securities fraud later that year and was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Following his release in 2038, he'll be on the hook to pay $230 million in restitution to his victims. Number 9. Aaron Shamo. At first glance, 29-year-old former Eagle Scout Aaron Shamo looked like the all-American boy next door. But beneath the college dropout's clean-cut exterior was a drug kingpin driven by shameless greed. Operating from the comfort of his home in the quiet suburbs of Salt Lake City, Shamo ran a multi-million-dollar fentanyl empire on the dark web. He shipped an estimated 500,000 fake fentanyl pills which he obtained from China to customers in all 50 states. Customers complained about their drugs being too strong and making them sick, but Shamo continued to peddle the fake pills. He would later be connected to 90 overdose-related deaths. Federal investigators uncovered Shamo's operation while tracing the illegal online storefront's money trail, leading to his eventual arrest along with 7 co-defendants. In 2019, he was found guilty of organizing and directing a drug trafficking organization, resulting in a lifelong prison term. According to prison records, he's serving his time at the high-security USP Atwater facility in the California desert. Shamo's co-defendants were convicted of various charges for their roles in the operation and received prison sentences ranging from 2 to 10 years. Number 8. Reiver Jose Sanchez-Molero. In late September of 2025, 24-year-old Reiver Jose Sanchez-Molero was charged with beating and robbing a man outside a Panda Express restaurant in Miami months earlier. The suspect, who is believed to be from Hillsboro, Texas, allegedly chased the victim through the parking lot before repeatedly striking him over the head with a metal bat. In late April, he then forced the victim to the ground, took the man's cell phone, and transferred $300 to himself via the Zelle banking app. Investigators identified Sanchez-Molero as the suspect by tracing the phone number of the Zelle account that he sent the money to. By then, he had returned to Texas, where he was being held on a federal immigration detainer. He's facing charges of armed robbery with a deadly weapon, aggravated battery with a weapon causing bodily harm, and false imprisonment with a deadly weapon. Number 7. Leticia Verney. In early 2024, law enforcement in Arizona learned that a woman was planning to smuggle drugs into the Maricopa County Jail during an upcoming visit with an inmate. The suspect, 41-year-old Leticia Verney, had traveled to the U.S. from Perth, Australia, to pursue a romantic relationship with Brandon Dawson, who was serving time at Lewis Prison in Buckeye. Having learned of the couple's drug smuggling plans from their recorded conversations, prison staff had a drug canine on standby when Verney showed up for a visit with Dawson. In her possession, they found 200 fentanyl pills, 28 grams of heroin, an ounce of methamphetamine, and a gram of marijuana. According to a law enforcement spokesperson, the drugs were worth thousands of dollars on the street, but could potentially yield tens of thousands of dollars in a jail or prison. Verney was originally charged with promoting prison contraband, money laundering, and the sale or transportation of dangerous drugs. She pleaded guilty to a lesser contraband smuggling charge and was sentenced in October of 2024 to 3.5 years in prison. Number 6. Annette Contruso. In mid-December of 2014, a woman in a baseball cap entered a Chase Bank branch in Hillsborough Township, New Jersey, shortly before 9 a.m. and handed a note to the teller demanding cash. The note stated that the woman was armed, and the teller turned over an undisclosed amount of money to the thief. By the time police arrived, the robber had fled the scene, but it didn't take them long to identify 27-year-old Annette Contruso was the suspect. Investigators made contact with the young woman, who willingly surrendered less than 2 hours after the robbery. While searching Contruso's vehicle, officers found the baseball cap they believed she had been wearing during the robbery, along with some of the cash proceeds and a small amount of cocaine and heroin. Following her arrest, Contruso was booked into the Somerset County Jail on suspicion of first-degree armed robbery and 2 counts of drug possession. The outcome of the case is unclear. Number 5. Cathy Jean Montgomery. A quiet Sunday morning took a chaotic turn at a Walgreens store in Spartanburg, South Carolina, in late January of 2022, when a female suspect entered the business shortly before 10 a.m. and robbed the cashier at gunpoint. Later identified as Cathy Jean Montgomery, the thief placed an undisclosed amount of cash into a black duffel bag and fled the scene in a green Ford Taurus. A few hours later, police spotted the vehicle and arrested Montgomery during a traffic stop. She was booked into the Spartanburg County Detention Center on an armed robbery charge, but the outcome of the case is unclear. Montgomery does not currently appear to be in state custody, and her alleged reasons for committing the robbery were never publicly disclosed. Number 4. Samantha Wyatt. Just days before Thanksgiving in late 2019, a woman robbed a U.S. bank branch in Dillsboro, Ohio. Thankfully, no one was injured, but the suspect had fled with an undisclosed amount of money by the time law enforcement responded to the scene. Police released images of the woman in hopes that members of the public could help identify and locate her. 3 days later, on the Thanksgiving holiday, the authorities received a tip from an anonymous caller who identified the suspect as 26-year-old Samantha Wyatt of Trenton. After confirming that Wyatt was the woman they were looking for, police arrested her on a robbery charge. Authorities released limited details about the case to the public, but a Journal News article from early 2022 revealed that Wyatt had served prison time and was working at a cafe called the Fringe Coffee House, which also functions as a re-entry program that provides employment to felons as they transition back into civilian life. Number 3. Darius Hall. In late September of 2025, a hammer-wielding suspect with a distinctive forehead tattoo entered a Fulton Bank branch in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, and demanded money before smashing plexiglass and a computer screen with the implement. He then assaulted 2 police officers with his vehicle as he made his getaway, causing minor injuries to both cops. The suspect was apprehended a short while later and has since been identified as 34-year-old Darius Rashad Hall. He faces a slew of charges including robbery, 2 counts of aggravated assault, 3 counts of simple assault, 2 counts of criminal mischief, fleeing or attempting to elude an officer, 2 counts of accident involving damage to a vehicle or property, theft by unlawful taking, reckless endangerment, conspiracy to commit robbery, and conspiracy to commit theft. Records show that Hall is being detained at the Cumberland County Prison as he awaits the next steps in his case. Today's topic was requested by the One Silver Shadow. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Vincent Smothers. 44-year-old Vincent Smothers is serving a lengthy prison term in Michigan for crimes he committed during his days as a notorious for-hire hitman in Detroit. By the time he confessed to the murders he'd committed as a paid assassin in 2008, an innocent teenager named Devontae Sanford was already serving prison time for 4 of the killings. As soon as he learned that Sanford had been found guilty, Smothers began to spill the details of his crimes to law enforcement in an attempt to convince them that they had convicted the wrong suspect. He told police that he had been working as a hitman for 2 years and confessed to 8 murders. Smothers took a plea deal and was sentenced to 50 to 100 years in prison, but he had yet to take responsibility for the 4 murders that Sanford had been wrongfully convicted of, and he eventually confessed to the killings in a bid to finally help clear Sanford's name. Sanford was exonerated in 2016, but Smothers is now being accused of providing a fellow inmate with false testimony in an attempt to help him get a new trial. He's facing an obstruction of justice charge, and the allegations have posed bigger questions surrounding his credibility, especially since the authorities have relied heavily on his testimony in past cases. Number 1. Jamie Balagia. Nicknamed the DWI Dude. Texas lawyer Jamie Morris Balagia was best known for defending accused drunk drivers in San Antonio and the surrounding area. His clientele also included some of the world's biggest drug traffickers, many of whom were Colombian nationals. Greed eventually got the best of Balagia, and in 2014 he conspired with 2 other men to swindle money out of accused Colombian drug traffickers. Balagia and his accomplices, Florida private investigator Chuck Morgan and a Colombian attorney, Bibiana Correa, Perea told their targets that they were in contact with U.S. government officials who would drop or significantly reduce criminal penalties in exchange for bribes. Many of these individuals were classified by the Office of Foreign Assets and Control as specifically designated narcotics traffickers, which meant that their assets were frozen and most U.S. citizens were prohibited from engaging in any financial transactions with them. The government advised Balagia to obtain what's known as an OFAC license so he could legally do business with these clients, but he failed to do so, instead depositing their payments into his personal bank account. Federal investigators eventually caught on to the scheme, and in December of 2016, Balagia was indicted by a grand jury on various charges relating to his crimes. His co-defendants both pleaded guilty, resulting in a 7-year prison sentence for Correa and a 6-year sentence for Morgan, but Balagia chose to take his case to trial. Following his 2-week trial in 2019, he was found guilty of conspiracy to commit money laundering, obstruction of justice, violation of the Kingpin Act, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Balagia was finally sentenced in 2021 to 188 months, nearly 16 years, in prison. He was also fined $1.5 million in order to relinquish his law office building. Thanks for watching. Would you quit your job and start an OnlyFans account if you could make $1 million a year off of it? Let us know in the comment section below.